Good morning, friends. Welcome to our Wednesday morning get-together. We're broadcasting live from the Iowa State Fair. My name is Jan Mickelson. We have a full day scheduled for you, and it looks like we're going to be dealing with politics the entire day. First hour, we have the honor of talking with Congressman Tom Latham for a while, and I want you to participate in this conversation. For first few minutes, I'm going to ask him a bunch of stuff just to get the conversation going a little bit, because I'm curious about how the world is going out there. I'll bet you have a lot of issues that you'd like to bounce off of him as well. Later, Rick Santorum is going to be visiting us. He's not a declared presidential candidate, but he's on the list of potential. So we'll chat with him for a while. And then there is a San Francisco Republican by the name of Fred Karger, who thought he would lob a hand grenade into the presidential pool by saying, I'm a Republican, I'm an outspoken gay rights activist, I'm coming to Iowa, and I'm coming to the fair, and I want to advance my cause. So we'll chat with him a little bit this morning, too. Congressman Latham, thank you. Welcome aboard, sir, and I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule.
Well, it's always great to be with you, Jan, and look forward to the conversation and talking to folks today.
Let's just get to work.
Okay.
All right. I just was collecting sound bites this morning of some pretty. Are those too loud for you? Still too loud?
I can't hear now.
Now
okay.
you can hear?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. We have a guy that's selling those things out here. I'm the one. So there was an article in the paper here today about the kids who are on the iPods all the time, and we're growing a generation who's going to be hearing impaired way too early.
Well, and it's permanent nerve damage when they do that.
So let's consider this our morning nag. So don't do that.
Okay.
I wasn't talking to you. We were just talking about the world at large. You'd be surprised, or perhaps not, because you've talked to people. But this mosque thing in New York is just driving Iowans crazy, at least vicariously. It's not in our backyard, but boy, do Iowans have an opinion about it. And I bet you do too. Even Senator Grassley had to weigh in on it yesterday. But this morning, your colleague Nancy Pelosi was talking about this. Guess who she would like to investigate? Here's what she said.
And I join those who have called for looking into how is this opposition to the mosque being funded? How is this being ginned up that here we are talking about Treasure Island, something we've been working on for decades, something of great interest to our community as we go forward to an election about the future of our country. And two of the first three questions are about a zoning issue in New York City.
So she's basically saying Nancy Pelosi wants to investigate the people who are upset about the mosque.
Well, I mean, is anything going to surprise you coming out of the speaker's mouth these days?
That surprised me.
Not me. Quite honestly, certainly legally they have a right to do it. But this is just an affront to the families that have lost loved ones at 9/11. It's an affront to, I think, America in general, that you would have a mosque built right at the site of the largest terrorist attack in the history of this country. And, it's just simply, it's not sensitive at all. It is something that people get that is an affront to the decency of every American, I think.
Speaking of affronts, you're going to have to. I'm glad you're already sitting down, because Representative Barney Frank was talking on Fox News yesterday. If I were to tell you this, you wouldn't believe it. So I'm just going to play it for you.
Both Bush administrations and the Reagan administration was very generous to me in saying I was one of the few politicians to be skeptical of home ownership. There are people in this society who, for economic and frankly social reasons, can't and shouldn't be homeowners. And what I would like to do is to unpack this. I do want some government help to build affordable rental housing, not the old style of public housing, but money lent to private developers, and we arrange it so that that's at very low interest rates or no interest rate, and you can subsidize it. But Fannie and Freddie, I believe, should be abolished. Now,
I can't believe it. here's a guy who has what was the instigator of what happened with Freddie and Fannie, and we're up to about $150 billion of taxpayer funds bailing these people out because he was the one that stood there continually saying that there was no financial difficulty with either one of these government agencies, that we should go ahead, that it was under President Clinton that they said that 50% of the loans that they made had to be, in essence, subprime loans, non-functioning loans, and he is now saying that this he wants to abolish.
Don't we have a term for that here in Iowa? Now that the horses, cows, sheep, chickens, kids, and everybody are out of the barn, and they went out on the highway and got run over. Now we should close the brown door.
Right. And the biggest defender of them all the way through and making lax the requirements for people to get loans was Barney Frank. And now to say that, well, we should need to do away with this. What he's going to do is continue to dump on the taxpayers. This thing could cost up to $1 trillion before it's done to bail out what Freddie and Fannie did in the past.
So we have the leadership of the Democratic Party, at least in the House, saying, first off, we ought to investigate the people who are protesting the mosque. And now Barney Frank says we ought to shut down Freddie and Fannie. I don't have any, there's nothing left to talk about.
Well, I think the interesting thing, they were the biggest cause of the financial meltdown to begin with. In the financial reform bill that they passed, that's supposed to take Wall Street to task and all this, it is mentioned only that we should sometime in the future look at Freddie and Fannie.
Well, he did go on
Nothing
in that
else.
interview.
In 2,300-page bill, all they talk about is maybe we should look at it sometime.
Well, they must have looked.
Well,
and so it's time to shut it down.
I think
he did later go on in that interview to suggest maybe we shouldn't make loans to people who can't afford to pay for them.
That's a revelation to Barney.
Now,
but
tell me,
they were required to make bad loans.
Yes.
By
he was one of the guys
orders.
retiring.
Yes.
Anyway, I had to ask you, too, because you came all the way back to Iowa ready to start your summer and taking the time to go out and talk with people and get campaigns going. And then the Democrats called you back to Washington to vote on something. What was that, and what do you think about it?
Well, it was a $26 billion, son of stimulus package, which was meant to save jobs for teachers and to help states pay for their Medicaid. So, it sounds fine. The problem is one part of it is taking money, about $10 billion, away from people receiving food stamps, which a lot of people are very upset about. But the rest of it supposedly was paid for with a tax increase on businesses that have overseas operations. When you look at something like a John Deere, a Rockwell, Caterpillar, those people, this is going to be devastating. And the National Association of Manufacturers says this will cost about 141,000 private sector jobs, this tax increase, with the idea of saving teachers, but let's destroy the private sector while we boost the government employees. And the only job growth, as we all know, in this economy has been in the government sector. The federal government's grown about 400,000 new people as far as jobs.
Extremely well-paid government people, we might add. Federal employees are about twice the national average.
Exactly. They, on average, $123,000 a year. In the private sector, it's about $61,000 a year.
Well, so this is a problem solved then. Can't we all just get on the payroll, start paying us that money, and I'll vote for you?
Well, and according to the Speaker, Ms. Pelosi, she said the best stimulus package you could have for the economy would be to have unemployment benefits go out. So by her definition, I guess if everyone was unemployed, that would be the best stimulus.
If the unemployment check was big enough.
Right. It's just nonsense. And
why does she have a job? Why does Barney Frank have a job?
Hopefully it's temporary.
They're safe districts, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The Speaker and certainly Barney Frank in Massachusetts is very safe, absolutely. But what is
invite Massachusetts to secede from the Union?
No. We have one senator, Republican senator from Massachusetts now, Scott Brown, which changed the whole dynamic last year.
I guess we need him.
Yeah.
Sort of.
But
how would you evaluate him, by the way? He's been a mixed bag for Republican votes.
Well, he's from Massachusetts, so you expect
he's a Massachusetts Republican.
Right, and that is different than a lot of other Republicans. But the fact of the matter is, on some real important things, he has been the 41st vote to stop some of the nonsense going on.
All right. We're talking here in the studio with Congressman Tom Latham, and we're talking issues. He's up for, well, I guess everybody is up for re-election. This is one of those either pleasant or unpleasant things you have to do. They stagger the re-elections of the senators.
Every 6 years.
Yeah,
right?
But every 2 years, because you represent the people, this branch of government is the most accountable branch of government. You've been out campaigning already for a little while. What is the mood of the electorate here in Iowa?
Well, what I've been doing...
Besides lethal.
Well, what I've been doing, I'm in the middle of doing a series of 27 town hall meetings over the August district court period, or recess, whatever you want to call it. And the response is absolutely incredible. People are scared to death of what they see coming out of Washington. They believe that no one is listening to them in Washington, D.C., that the government is totally out of touch with reality of what's happening in real people's lives.
Do you assent to that? Do you think that's an accurate...
Oh, absolutely.
Is it?
I've been there a while, and I will tell you, I have never seen things like they have in this last 2 years, a year and a half now. The proposals being put forward, the amount of spending. Jan, we're spending borrowing 43 cents on every dollar that we spend this year in the federal budget, and also this year, for the first time since 1974, when the Budget Act was passed, the House is not even attempting to pass a budget themselves. All they're doing is deeming a big number and then letting David Obey from Wisconsin basically divide up the money. So there's no accountability, there's no restraint, and the reason they don't want to do a budget is because then they'd have to vote on amendments that would reduce the size and scope of the federal government. They don't want to do that. Nancy Pelosi wants to have full control of spending in Washington, and if they had restraints of a budget, she couldn't do that.
I neglected to do what I've always promised my listeners I would do when we talk about some of this. When you talked about the $26 billion you folks, not you, but the Congress just authorized for the, you call it son of stimulus, when they decided to bail out the states and put money into the education system, theoretically, and keep teachers from getting fired. What part of the Constitution authorizes that?
I don't know of any part of the Constitution that authorizes that. It has been a common practice, unfortunately. And the fact of the matter is, this money is way too late even to help states at this point. You've already got school districts that already have they're in session already.
They already fired teachers and adjusted to the budget they thought they were going to have.
Right.
All right, so you're in the minority party. And if you know that the other side is serving up something unconstitutional, what powers do you guys have other than rhetorical? Can you stand and say in the well of the Congress, point of order? Can you say that? Where would you be marginalized if you tried to do that every time they did that?
Well, the problem is there is no order in Congress right now.
What does that mean?
Well, that means that there is no regular order. There is no system where we're having the ability to offer amendments, to go through a committee process.
Is that just power politics?
Absolutely. And when you look at the health...
Is there a remedy for that?
Having leadership there that actually believes in a process, that believes that in the House of Representatives, every 435 members should have a say in the legislation that goes through. The problem is when you look at the health care bill, when you look at the environmental bill that's going through, the cap and trade bill, those things are written in the back rooms, in the Speaker's office or in the Majority Leader in the Senate's office, with no input. And I will tell you, it's not just Republicans that are frustrated. The rank-and-file Democrats are being totally put out of the process also.
Then why don't you band together and put a stop to this stuff?
Well, because the Speaker has great power over her big majority.
You mean the Speaker who thinks he ought to investigate the people who are upset at the mosque?
Right. The same person. You're right, Jan. But no, there is no problem. And that's one thing that I will assure people next year, if in in fact there is a change in the majority in the House of Representatives, that we will have a process put in place where every member of Congress has a say in legislation, that you are able to offer amendments, that you're able to have hearings and actually discuss